Welcome back to FinTalk, brought to you by Vermic. I'm Jawad Akhtar, your host. So today, good to have back James Phillips, RegTech Innovate. James, welcome back.
Thank you, Jawad. Pleased to be here.
Last time we did the very first episode together. That was very different to what we are now.
Yeah, look at this.
So it's moved on, isn't it? James, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
Since we last spoke, well, we last spoke at the last Vermic conference, I think, or obviously informally since then.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fair to say, well, I will answer your question by saying, what have I been up to when I am wearing two hats? One is my RegTech Innovate hat, and the other is when I'm not working hat. Perhaps if you'd like to know about those.
Yes, definitely.
Would you like to know about those? Okay, good. Well, fair enough then. I try and be enthusiastic about both. The RegTech Innovate hat is where I'm looking to deploy my skills around going to market as an innovatory software solution in the compliance space. I've been working with a small number of clients in that area, but only up to a certain amount in terms of the amount of my time that it's been using for. So that's been really very interesting, and that's ongoing. The other side of what I've been doing, perhaps, is finding some more time in my own life, which has been busy for the last several decades, as you know. Yeah, working in this space. And I think there I've probably got two areas I can call on. One is mind food, and I think for that I'm playing a bit of chess. I'm getting quite involved with amateur dramatics, which involves trying to learn lines, which is
I was hoping you'd say that.
Quite a challenge. And the other perhaps is body food, if you will, and that involves, I've been doing bowling, I've been doing go-karting, I row every now and then, and do gardening. And it's very convenient that I essentially that, because actually my last part I've got coming up in the next amateur dramatics play is as a gardener, so I can double up on all of those things. So there we are.
And if people want to see it, where do they go?
Oh, Barnes Community Centre. Yes, this July. There you go.
One for people's diaries.
Yeah.
James, we've spoken many times, and we work together. You've been in the industry for a long time. We see a lot more challenger banks starting to prop up, starting neobanks, all new startups, fintechs, things like that. Yeah. What advice would you give them to become, say, future fit?
Whew. Okay. Right. Okay. I as you probably will know from our discussions before, and also from where I'm generally coming from, try to always keep an eye to what's coming over the horizon in terms of change at a larger level than necessarily just the next regulation coming through. So around that, there are some key themes which I think will be important for firms management to consider. One, I think it's vital that firms absolutely embrace innovation and the pace at which that is coming. It is coming fast. Yeah, and accelerating. And I'm not just talking about AI, but we will discuss that later. But so many things are happening so quickly through technological innovation and regulatory change and force of circumstances, if you will, around economic or political circumstances. So that's pace of change, embracing change. The second is around data quality. And I know it's a theme that keeps popping up all the time, but it does for a good reason. It's there for helping firms to manage themselves, for regulators to see what's going on, for those that need the data to understand how to analyze that and see the big picture. Without good quality data, so many things stop. The innovation piece I mentioned before is stopped. The third is the main feature I would encourage folks to look at is to be future fit, if that was the core of your question, is around yes, GRC, but I'm going to be a bit more proactive about that and call this cognitive GRC, mindful GRC, not in a therapeutic sense, mindful, but mindful to be very much to be proactive, therefore to be not reactive around what could be done around compliance in the round. Again, you see how these things are all strung together. So you've got to have the right tech for that, you've got to have the right data quality for that, and you've got to have the right mindset for that. Starts at the top. It's a mind thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah, you mentioned data. Data's been, since you've been started and since we've taken over, it's just been, data's always been a problem. It's never, and then obviously with the pace of change, kind of adds to that. I want to tackle on horizon scanning. Now, horizon scanning has always been an issue, and it's always topical amongst clients when we speak to them, just because of the vast amount of regulation that we see. Now we see consumer duty, we see Basel, we've seen IREF, we've seen DORA. How on earth do people try and horizon scan this?
Yeah, well, it is obviously a massive challenge. I think there is now enough evidence from the success to be honestly empirical and look at it that way of firms that are actually in that space, one of which I've worked with, and there are others that are providing tools that, again, using, yes, AI to some degree, and certainly using modern software tools to scan what's out there as a requirement. If that is then mapped against what a firm feels they need to do or have said that they will do, or even better, mapped against their existing procedures and processes, then they're in a position to go quite a long way to automating the impact of that change, both finding it, if you will, and then also measuring it and determining the actions to be done against it. And then, of course, measuring the management response to that. So has the necessary actions then been taken? To achieve that, though, you do have to get to a point where you can use tools of that nature rather than obviously leaving behind spreadsheets, the data question that we mentioned before, or relying on individuals to pursue or peruse through their own human time this massive volume of change. So I think I'm going to come back to my first 3 points about the recommendations that I might give to help a firm get future fit. If you were to build a business case around the kinds of solutions you would look for if you're a firm, if you're a banking institution or similar, then putting some form of much improved horizon scanning in there from one of the primary providers wouldn't be a bad start, rather than looking to do it the other way, whatever that may be. So, significantly automating horizon scanning would be an exceptionally good place to be.
You mentioned about AI, and I know some of the work that you do already around that space. Will you kind of expand on that?
Okay, so we can get on an AI rabbit hole, which is always very fun, But I think actually it is worth noting is the extent to which AI is coming of age is you're not going to hold it back. There's no way it's going to get held back. Whatever regulations done around it and so on, it'll be constrained to the right boundaries. But it's it and its contribution to, for instance, the low-hanging tasks in any compliance challenge, consumer ID, transaction monitoring, whatever they may be looking for, oddities of that nature. These things will be expanded upon as the boundaries of what the AI tools can do in terms of helping firms achieve a compliance challenge. But if you look at then in particular, the way in which those boundaries will be limited, I'd like to just reference an example of this by giving an analogy. It's kind of an area where in a rising tide, all boats rise, right? Everybody gets better. By not recognizing that AI is going to have a positive impact on the efficacy of firms' challenge processing, whatever the challenges are they're looking to process, whether that's KYC, whether it's looking after mapping, as I said, incoming change, automating the semi-automatable routine jobs, the knowledge worker category. It's going to go further than that. It's going to go beyond knowledge workers. If you read into it in more detail, there are noises about getting your hair dressed by a robot. Whatever it may be. Containerized shipping is now hands-free. As we were chatting just before, within your lifetime, you'll be in an airplane without a pilot. I don't know about mine. So these things are all taking a pace, and that pace is quite significant, and that it's bounded only by the borders of how far you let it go. That might be a regulatory border, or it might be a cost challenge border. So the explainability things have to come through and so on. So. And we really are at the very early stages of, again, let me characterize this, a tsunami of AI apps of one form, early stages. If you look at the NVIDIA share price, if you've been exploring things like that, it's, hundreds of percent up over where it was last year. I just saw a release this morning, I think it was, around looking at the next bunch of forecasts. They've just released their years. And everyone's going, wait, it's too low. Because they're the only people out there providing GPUs, chips, graphics processing chips that have got the right amount of power. Who wants AI chips? Everybody. Yeah, any kind of processing. And so the number of apps that are going to come into this space, whether it's for ships or aeroplanes, or indeed looking after your compliance challenges, I think are going to be huge and so significantly impacting that it would be a negative on a firm in the regulated space if they were not to look quite creatively at how AI-powered apps can help their compliance response, let alone the rest of their responses. Because if they're not, the next outfit is, the competition up the street is, and the regulators will respond to that. The regulators are, looking at, I was looking at a review just only a few days ago about a speech from one of the senior guys at the Bank of England around their own review into their own data strategy. And an important part of that, unsurprisingly, is piloting the use of AI in a much more aggressive way. So it's going to be there. Yeah,
I think AI has always been around, and we spoke about it early in the season about AI being around. It's always been around. So a spreadsheet is effectively an AI tool. Yes, you're right. Pace of AI is going to
more than
extrapolate massively. I think it's trying to keep on top of that. And we know from the government and the work that they're doing around trying to control and put some structure around it as well. I think otherwise it's just going to go off onto different tangents. Yeah, we spoke about driverless planes, but we've got driverless trains at the moment on the DLR, right? So
driverless cars.
Driverless cars. We've touched upon that. I want to touch upon operational resilience. I know in the EU we've got DORA coming up. How does that then obviously impact, as a firm now, I'm looking at, right, I've got to get my data sorted. I've got to worry about AI or how to use AI smarter. Now I've got to be operational resilient. Where's that kind of target?
Well, I think I'd like to perhaps less so AI feature the data quality point I was making earlier when we're looking at DORA. For a firm to know that they're compliant in that area, they have to have conducted an audit of their potential resilience risks. They need to know what they've done about that, what they're planning to do about it. They need to measure that they have been successful in mitigating those risks through what the impact of scenario testing has been. They need to demonstrate imminently in board reports what the status is going to be and that they continue to do this. So the kind of data points that are getting measured there are not those that typically will have been recorded in the past. It's not it's not a trade, it's not a transaction, it's not customer ID. It's risk events in one form or fashion. And again, it's coming into, again, not so much AI necessarily, but that becomes a red herring. I think we'll talk about that here. But for firms that have, let's say, under the UK regimes, they will have already been mindful of the resilience of challenges. With European DORA coming along, if they have any European exposure, they'll be looking again at the 5 pillars there, through risk management processes, through the incident management, recording and reporting, operational resilience, testing, the third-party piece, of course, and information sharing, which are all just new things that they have to do or be obliged to do. So those are all new data captures, they're all new challenges, and again, they will be feeding into what becomes, if you extrapolate this further, to my much earlier points about what does a future fit organization look like. It's the right investment into RegTech solutions that will give management. I remember back in the day, Jawad, I used to always talk about green dashboards. Yeah, what's green, what's red, what's amber, what's in the middle, what's moving in the wrong direction, the trend indicators around this. If you've got the data captures, if you're not relying on spreadsheets, if you've not got it all hidden away in Outlook or SharePoint, if you've engineered the firm for all of these things, DORA is just another business case, that speaks to it being worth a firm investing in getting their whole environment much more automated.
Well, we see that with the emergence of ESG and the amount of data required for that. Just I can see organisations now having to kind of forcing their hand, really. And you're right. You said earlier on that firms to become proactive rather than reactive. And I think there's a lot of being guilty of being reactive rather than proactive. But again, there's a cost. There's cost benefit, right? They're not charities at the end of the day.
But it is that. I mean, the business case for investing in quality of data is, if it ever wasn't a no-brainer, it is, I hope, a no-brainer now. You just got to move to a point where you aren't reliant on key person risks, where somebody knows how to adjust that, or where there's a particular exposure that you know about. I mean, pre-DORA, pre-operational resilience demands from regulators, firms will have been aware of what their potential exposures are and had it to the to-do list, but not done anything about it. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of failures as a result of entirely preventable things that were accidents waiting to happen. The obligation now is to get beyond that and improve the situation by knowing that risk exists, having it on a dashboard somewhere, and having it go amber and red. And if you can cause so many of the indicators within your firm's day-to-day processing to be so driven into management dashboards, into because all senior management responsibilities again, right? All these things from whether you're getting the report in on time or being aware of a DORA risk. This is all senior management stuff, right? It's unavoidable. That's the business case, right? For investing in better data quality across all of these measures.
Yeah, and it's becoming more. I mean, we see all the CEO letters, and I think there's more of an accountability now coming back to the senior managers, where before yes, we had a senior managers regime, but that was passed down and so diluted down. You pass that buck on, don't you? You pass that risk on to someone else. But now there's a kind of firm saying that there is a level of accountability. James, you've been around for a long time, and I think for firms that are listening to this or watching this, keen to understand. Right, I've got a takeaway. What are your 3 or 4 takeaways that you want to?
Yeah, I think just very briefly before touching this, because it doesn't feed into the answer. Let's not ignore the recent Dear CEO letter. Yeah, definitely. As a part of the feed into the why data quality, a crucial part of that. That seeks to have firms know and be aware of their everything ranging from their resilience through to their data qualities and through to their reporting ability. So the tone from the top is an important part of that completely. So if you are looking to change the tone from the top, and from the top you're looking to make a business case, my summary of what would be required would be to make a business case for the right investment in innovation and modernization of what the firm is doing, so that it has the flexibility to handle the future, to be future fit, even to come to the thematic that we're driving here. Not just because the Dear CEO letter says it's a good idea, not just because regulations generally changing seem to be a good idea, not just because there's a business case around horizon management that says it's a good idea, but because it's across all of these things, all the rising tide of endless innovations around AI that you get left behind if you haven't got it. And you can't do any of these things unless data quality is good. If you can't rely on the underlying data, none of this automation is possible, right? So data quality, I think that was probably the second item. The first item is, let's say, the level of automation that's put into sorting out your firm to be able to handle the future is worth looking at quite seriously. So this is process automation around not just obviously trading, but all the other supporting processes, but principally around compliance. Yeah, so the workflow to do with that, every exception you have, every compliance obligation you have to stick with. This level of there are RegTechs out there that can do that now, right? So if you're looking to make an investment in RegTech, make it an appropriate one. Number 1. 2, data quality, as you have said. The business case for that, I'm sure, is quite clear, all the way down to whatever you need to get out of spreadsheets, out of fact packets, out of backs of envelopes. Some recent looking work we were doing actually around horizon management, we found that it is impossible for some firms to automate properly their response to that because their own procedure was not identifiable as data. It's identifiable as an email or as a document in a SharePoint somewhere. So you can't therefore achieve that level of automation without getting that into the data quality stream as well. So level of automation is one. Number 2 is the data quality to support that. And number 3, perhaps I said it earlier, it's cognitive GRC. So to be cognitive, to be forward thinking, to be very conscious about the overarching governance risk compliance challenges that a firm has. Much of that might be captured by what you've already put in place, but by being cognitive about, and I mean by that to be able to use forward-looking tools. Again, that could be where more AI-driven, more investigative, more exploratory review of the data, if you have good quality in there, can achieve, rather than it being reactive. It can be cognitive in the sense that the scenario testing that's been put into that is very, very good. It's very much a tone from the top way of thinking, so that the mindset of the organization is geared towards making GRC a competitive advantage. Okay, I'll summarize my summary, right? So RegTech investments of the appropriate and high quality nature so that maximized automation is there. Data quality to absolutely support that across the board, and that includes new types of data, like, for example, the resilience data. And being highly thoughtful, if you will, forward-thinking, cognitive around the GRC challenges that a firm has to meet.
Fantastic. I think it always comes back to data, doesn't it? Everything that we do, it will always come back to.
If you don't, you can't measure it. If you can't measure it, you can't fix it.
You can't create MIs off the back of it.
No, Standard stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll be found wanting when somebody comes knocking on the door. And it's, well, in fact, the dear CEO talks in terms of expect us to come knocking and expect more Section 166s.
Well, yeah. It's a common theme at the moment. James, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Might see you in Barnes Community Centre.
Yeah, you know what? Can I correct that? It's actually Barnes Community Players.
Oh,
I got it wrong.
Playhouse.
Far too excited, yeah. You'll have to find where they are. They're at the old sorting office in Barnes in July.
Oh,
see you then.
Fantastic. See you there, James. Thank you.